Okay, episode 3, Wing It Podcast at GooseDigital.com. Who do we have?
Kevin Butler.
Chris O'Neill.
Michael Turksani.
We're back.
We're back. Okay, we swapped some seats. Okay.
I feel like we just did one.
Don't watch the 2 episodes back to back because you'll see that we're still here and the beer is out. Uh-oh. This is chocolate milk. If this is in the, I don't know if it's in the screen. All right. So, well, welcome guys. We're here.
Glad to be back.
Thanks, Michael.
Okay, we're blasting through these now. Okay, this is content strategy in motion, in flight.
Do we think this will be a shorter one?
No. So we're just talking about CRMs. We're talking about organization. The marketing automation platforms. We're the marketing automation experts. That's our tagline, Kevin. Okay, You came up with that. It's genius. Genius, by the way. As marketing automation experts, as platforms that run on top of the CRM. So, we talk to prospects that, they don't want to move forward with a marketing automation solution until their CRM is fully baked. Now, maybe they have one and it's not ready, or they feel it's not ready.
And it may not be.
And it may not be, or they don't have anything. So they're like, well, how could we move, how could we do, we have a customer list. It's in our ERP. Well, how could we move forward with marketing automation? So maybe we should sort of like explore that, because we've helped a number of organizations sort of unclog and start driving value in, that in their journey for sort of 1.5, 2 years of their journey without kind of holding up or without putting a lot of emphasis necessarily in the CRM. But
yeah, I think one of the things when we talk to folks is this idea of, well, what's the role that each plays, right? Mm-hmm. Most people will fundamentally understand and say, yeah, I understand that they make up a part or a portion of the MarTech stack, but what does that look like? So a lot of times that we'll tell customers, prospects, anyone that's really willing to listen, is this idea of the CRM's the system of record where all data should be stored, sit, and reside in. And the marketing automation platform is the system of execution whereby you're using the data in the CRM to do something with, right? To engage in it's based on certain fields, criteria, whatever. But to me,
which by the way, that concept in and of itself, I don't know that every person that we talk to really sees it that way, and that's a great way to put it. Like,
maybe not.
Wow, I didn't realize that's why I'm investing in putting this data in the system.
No, we had a conversation this morning with actually one of our clients, and they were asking questions like, well, where should this data go versus that data? Should this go in CRM and this go in the marketing automation? And my answer personally, like what I believe is it should all go in the CRM and then go do something about it or with in the marketing automation platform. But it's funny, like we talk a lot about nimble companies being able to execute quicker in order to sort of get ahead and drive greater growth, but I feel for these businesses that have been around a lot longer because they have years upon years, right, in some cases decades worth of data, whether it's in really old ERPs or CRMs or whatever the technology is, and it's like, how do you come from that? Like, how do you get it to a state where now you can start using it? But one of the things we see is organizations are trying to get creative with how they do that, where they say, you know what, we're just going to worry about lead data right now. We'll forego all the customer stuff. We have 20 years worth of customer data. We'll figure that out later. But in order to kind of move a bit forward or forward quicker, we'll just tackle lead stuff now, put that through automation, give that a clean in the CRM, and then try to get to market with that. Figure out customer stuff in another day.
What's your take, Chris?
Well, I think it's true that that there is some reluctance to kind of go in and invest in another software. For some companies, they look at these as individual sort of products that will sort of give me a particular return on my investment. So when somebody sold them a CRM, it was like, okay, so here's what we have found is that people that are using XYZ CRM are able to generate generate X number of more sort of customer contacts or whatever. That's how those systems were sold.
Okay.
If those numbers did not pan out, it becomes even more difficult to kind of come in with a new, technology and say, listen, this is what we've found. We're able to sort of generate with. So really, it does have to start with a strategic discussion, and that's where I think that that some organizations are ready for that strategic discussion, to take all the software, to take all the promises off the table and say, what are we and what are we trying to do? Are we trying to sort of engage our existing customer base more fully? Are we trying to sort of just generate new
leads.
contact and leads and opportunities? What is it we're trying to do? And from that point, we can sort of take a look at what it is that they have in place, what it is that they might be looking at, and sort of help them carve out something to take them forward.
Okay, but if you have, we go through that, and I think that you realize, let's take maybe an example where they don't have a modern CRM. Okay, so they have a CRM, and maybe it's considered modern in the sense that it's a new version of an SAP product, but it doesn't integrate with sort of the marketing automation platforms easily, right? Or maybe it is just like more of a legacy CRM that really truly just is 15 years long in the tooth, and people are using it, and they get by, and now they want to do marketing automation. So they've looked at it and they said, well, geez, yeah, but we can't do that. So then then we start talking to them. Mm-hmm. So we have the strategic conversation. Oh yeah, okay. So, but do we need to change our CRM? That's if we're talking about changing our CRM now, well, this project's kind of going to need, I can see to your point. Can they ante up and say we're going to just blow all this stuff away? But are there in between states where they can say, well, to Kevin's point, you can use the systems to a point and drive a lot of value.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to that strategic discussion and deciding, okay, so what is it that I need to do now? So there's a lot of folks out there that have I think some of our CRM partners call it sort of cutting the head off. So you sort of start with, you leave that ERP or accounting system or whatever it is in place. You cut off everything else, and then you plop the CRM on top of that. And it's kind of like, okay, we don't have to reinvent the wheel all the way back to accounts.
Right.
We can basically leave that part in that in place. We're not going to get a whole lot more efficiencies in the short term out of changing like an accounting system. Mm-hmm. So let's focus on where we're interacting with our customers and partners, and focus on that area. Okay.
So now, I agree with that, but it's a slippery slope, because what if it's so easy to say, well, we'll take a sliver of it, do that, but it's like there's got to be at the same time a long-term plan to getting the rest of the business there, because then what happens is 3 years goes by pretty quick, and now you've got 2 different databases going on, and it's going to get even harder to get to ideal state.
We just talked about the CRM, and it's cutting the head off and saying, okay, I'm going to do that. What if you said, well, we can't really cutting the head off isn't practical for us, or we are in a system that sort of totally fully meets our needs from a CRM perspective, but we want to do marketing automation. And I think that there's a lot of those that we've been talking to where they're like, well, we can't really do anything with market automation for a year and a half because, this and that, and eventually we got to change it. Where then we come along and say, well, maybe we can, maybe we can pull the data that you have strategically, still have a strategic lens to the approach, get you working marketing automation, leveraging the data that's there in your CRM, and then, manage their expectations that potentially in a year and a half from now, whatever that time frame happens to be, you may hit a wall where your CRM now should evolve. I think that's kind of the area where, if you can find someone that's willing to forego their CRM and just, like to your point, cut the head off, go from CRM marketing automation, then, there's a lot of options. You can bring in a Salesforce.com with a marketing cloud or a Pardot and get, boom, do kind of both at the same time.
What would you say is, so we're not like this enterprise that's been around for 20 years, but you're the CEO. What if I came to you today and said, we need to redo the entire CRM and marketing automation stack. And it's going to take 5 or 6 months and a considerable amount of money to do it. Like, what would you say if I said that now?
Well, I think what we would say is, to Chris's point, what are we going to get out of it?
What are we going to be?
What are we going to be? Where does that going to take us, right? If you said, we're going to do this for 6 months because it's going to create X amount of growth, and here's why, right? And we could see a 3-year return or whatever that money happens to look like. But if it made sense from a plan perspective, then you could say, oh, okay, and that fits our current marketing. But if you said there's really no guarantees and it's a major disruption and, a few $100,000, $500,000, you might be very leery, right?
I think it's interesting because I think that very response is what a lot of folks and organizations out there are dealing with, right? Because they can probably see a path where they can say, well, it'd be easier to do a lot of things. And we could probably do things like marketing outreaches better, easier, more dynamic, more personalized, go down the list. And you can probably even get to a place where you say, and I could see how that could give us a bit of a lift in sales, conversions, whatever that looks like for one's business. But it's like, you still have to take that leap of faith and say, I believe this would lead to good things, right? It's hard to really say, to your point off the top about CRMs, it's what does that really get you?
Yeah, you don't engage your customer by implementing a CRM.
Right.
I think if you understand what your audience is looking for or what it is that your audience is, then that helps, I think, to inform the rest of your strategy, because there's no point in kind of putting in another a station wagon, right? There's no point in putting, in putting another one in the garage when you really need to be across town, in front of your customer. So I think the start of it is to accept that, or I feel like if you accept that your customer is going to be looking for solutions. And that they're going to be looking for those solutions online or in their email or whatever, and all those the ways that you are able to attract attention using those forms, then that's where you start, because that's where all of your communication with your customers is going to drive. If you need to sort of re-platform everything in order to make that happen, well, I guess you do, but it seems to me like there's a lot of choices to be made, and I think there are those out there that feel, well, can't really do that because we've got this 20-year-old ERP and we can't do anything.
And I think you could say there's marketing automation. So that's where I wanted to get to. I mean, I think you're right. You could cut the head off, keep the accounting. You see a world re-adopt the CRM in a new modern platform that has the marketing automation easily turnkeyed into that, and go deploy that strategy. Close the deal, goes into the accounting system, and that's kind of how you would do it.
And a lot of our customers are actually doing just that.
And they're doing that, right? Or you could say, well, your current CRM, because not all CRMs, maybe have what you would need to activate the marketing automation. To your point, Kev, put that data into action. So if you said, actually, your CRM really does, for all intents and purposes, it has all the data that we would ever need to drive probably campaigns for the better part of 3 years. Yeah, it's archaic and it's not going to be, maybe the best interface for a millennial to come in and use, but it has everything.
I'm actually glad you said that, because it's true. I think, last episode we talked about that sort of big bang thing, getting everything so rock solid perfect, and then you can start to put things. Is a lot of the times we look at it and we say, well, what's the purpose? What are you trying to do? What can you do with the data that exists? You don't need a 2018 system necessarily to be able to do that. And maybe there's a bit of sort of side work that's going to go on, or little things that have to do in order to get to a state where you can go and do something creative. But generally speaking, even an outdated CRM, provided the contacts are up to date, will give you enough to work with where you can run targeted campaigns against them. Yeah,
and that was, so then I think your platform choice for MAP, for marketing automation, might be different. Maybe you're not going with a Salesforce Marketing Cloud or Pardot because, well, that won't integrate with your system necessarily very easily. maybe go with one of the other standalone platforms that are, a little bit more standalone, if you will, or portable on their own to develop that strategy. And that's where I think, in the past with IT may really put up those walls and say, well, hold on, like it's got to be perfect, or it's got to be this, it's got to be that. Maybe there isn't a CMO that has a lot of experience sort of driving an integrated CRM map upgrade path, which we've talked to some clients about recently, just clearly have a strategy and it maps the third wheel or the third phase, but it's all mapped out. It's going to happen. But a lot of organizations feel sort of paralyzed because they're like, well, my IT is telling me one thing. I really can't do anything. My marketing team just doesn't have the skills to be able to navigate that type of conversation. God forbid we were to allow them to have a marketing automation platform. Things would just go totally sideways. And that's where, obviously we come in, is to be able to coach an organization and say, well, we're not going to go rogue off to the side. There'll be controls and governance around this data. But at the end of the day, the business needs to grow. We need to add value back into this business. We need to drive our strategies, which nowadays are fairly well known.
I can't imagine if I'm a CMO joining a new organization, I can't imagine it would take longer than about 15 minutes and a cup of coffee on my first day to ask questions about the CRM, the state of the data, and how can we use what we have in order to get going.
Yeah, exactly.
I just couldn't imagine any other way. Now, if there's various roadblocks internally, whether it's people or tools or a combination of both, that's one thing. Because I feel for, in that example, a lot, like significantly larger organizations, maybe they have different companies within, different sort of siloed operations, whatever, and all of a sudden, you got the other business over here saying, whoa, the CMO wants to do what with my business?
Yeah.
Like if you think of like a CGI, they have like 100 different organizations. Imagine the CGI CMO now is saying, well, I want to do this here, and they're like, what?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's why the CMO is starting to have a larger, sort of position at the table, because, they're coming in and
well, I thought they were the largest. I thought marketers ran the whole thing. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's new. Speaking from the millennial, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's new, Kev. Sorry.
Sorry to break it to you,
but that's definitely with a larger seat at the table, needing to kind of bring it all together. So they're really they're really running the party. I mean, if they can walk in and articulate how much power that marketing stack can have in terms of engagement with the customer, game over.
Yeah, and to be able to, I would say responsibly go into the IT infrastructure and negotiate and integrate,
slash and burn,
right, the environment, so that you're not just going rogue, right? I mean, part of the reason why in that presentation that you just saw the reins being pulled back in by the CEOs and the boards around this marketing is because they're spending a lot on tech that isn't necessarily being managed to the rigor that traditional IT or IT departments would run. Now they, a pendulum kind of swung way maybe to the side of IT, too far, because we can't get what we need done in a reasonable amount of time.
Right, but either CFOs or CEOs are saying, okay, we spent a lot of money. What is this actually doing?
But you can't go all the way to the other end of the spectrum in the sense that, well, we got, marketers plucking our data and emailing it to other people and, setting up databases all over the place, right? So it's somewhere in the middle, which is now this is what we're talking about.
As a side note, like, something that you saw, I think a bit more like in the 80s and 90s, was a lot of the time you'd see organizations and CEOs would naturally come up through the organization, usually with a financial pedigree as a means to run a corporation properly. I wonder if like the new way of it is like now you got the marketers, right? Because they're owning so much more of the life cycle and they're really driving a lot of this growth, not only from programs and sort of campaigns, but also now from a technology perspective and how much of the org it touches, from awareness all the way through to sales and then into customer. So I wonder, like, in 20 years, do we say most CEOs now have a background in marketing as opposed to like...
Wait, is Kevin he's trying to take
the ascent has begun.
Yeah, is he trying to take my job? Is
like, tune in next week to see if Turksani still has a job.
Yeah. I wonder if I'm going to be the CEO.
Well, you have a marketing background.
Yeah,
you're a marketing first guy, so I think you're safe.
No, yeah, that's true. Phew. God, I was worried about that.
Should we end it here as a cliffhanger? Like, see if
I mean, there's a good chance that I'm not here next episode, right? And Kevin's just, he's...
Good luck, Kev.
Yeah.
I don't want to tip my hand, but wait and see.
But, you know, that's a good line for a sales pitch. Just a quick sidebar before we end. Like, to me, that would really build on the ego of the CMO if we're in the room. Like, you know what? You're CEO material. You know what? You should be running this place. Like, I feel like...
Or our tagline, it's like moving your marketing program forward. It's like helping you rise to CEO.
Yeah, helping you run. Yeah, that... All right, this is going down fast. All right, episode 3. 4?
3.
3. Okay, we're done.
See you next time. See if Mike's here in episode 4.
Done.